Welcome back to the Old Photo Vault channel. Miners in the Drift Tunnel. Unknown mine, circa 1900. They said the photograph was taken after a 12-hour shift. Yet Tom swore he never remembered a fifth man standing behind them in the tunnel. In the print, just over his shoulder, the rock seems to lift into a face. Pale, long-jawed, watching. Old Carruthers claimed the tunnels sometimes held on to people who didn't come back up. And the others laughed until they saw the photo themselves. Each time Tom set it aside, the faint figure crept a little closer in the grain. By winter, the face was clear as any of theirs. Tom stopped coming to work, leaving only the picture pinned to his cot, the background tunnel now entirely empty. 3 women at the bar, unknown city, late 1940s. People always notice the laughter first. The way Lila, Marcy, and Irene seem caught mid-joke. Skirts swinging, drinks half raised. Only after a moment do they see the fourth expression. The faint, unhappy face reflected on Lila's knee, as though pressed against the glass of the photograph itself. Irene later said she felt a draft that night, though no door had opened. And Marcy swore she heard someone whisper her name from under the counter. When the women gathered again a week later, the reflection appeared clearer, older, almost pleading. By the end of summer, only Irene would agree to be photographed at all. And every print showed the same face, now looking directly at her. Woman beside painted wagon, countryside, early 1930s. She said her name was Celia, though the neighbors insisted no such woman had ever lived in the traveling show that camped by the creek that summer. In the photo, she lounges easily on the wagon step, but her eyes seem fixed on someone just outside the frame, as if expecting a reply. Children later remembered hearing her humming at dusk, soft and patient, though the troop packed up and left days before. When the picture was developed, a second hand appeared on the wagon door. Thin, reaching, though no one had been standing there. By autumn, the wagon prints all showed a faint figure beside her, blurred but leaning closer. Celia never appeared in any records, yet the humming still drifts through the trees at night. Picnic at the graveyard, rural town, early 1950s. They said it was just a church luncheon, though no one could explain why Mrs. Daltrey set the table so close to the stones. In the photograph, everyone seems politely occupied. Yet Mrs. Hamer keeps glancing over her shoulder, as if someone else had joined their circle. When the picture was shown around later, people noticed a tall, pale blur rising behind the headstone. Too high, too narrow to be a tree. Mr. Keene insisted nothing odd happened that day, though he has not returned to the cemetery since. By midsummer, another print surfaced. This one showing chairs set for 6, though only 5 had attended. And in every version, the blur leans a little closer to Mrs. Daltrey's hat. Red house on the curve, foggy district, undated. Neighbors said the place was merely old, though its bowed walls made it seem as if the house were listening. In the photograph, the bare trees clutch at the windows like hands, and a faint smear of smoke coils from the doorway, though no fire burns inside. Mrs. Harrow swore she heard someone pacing in the upper rooms whenever she passed on her morning walk. Slow steps that paused when she looked up. Children dared each other to knock, yet the door always opened a fraction before their fists could land. When the picture was developed, a shadow appeared on the top balcony, slender, leaning forward, though the house had been empty for decades. By winter, no one used that road at all, except for the figure seen lingering in the windows at dusk. Mother's grave, suburban lawn, early 1900s. They said the photograph was meant only to show the flowers, though the child crouched behind them seems to be hiding rather than grieving. In the background stands a woman in a pale dress, blurred as though she moved too slowly to be seen clearly. Neighbors later remembered that Mrs. Ellery never let her son play outside after dusk, claiming he followed someone across the yard. When the picture was developed, the boy insisted the woman had been whispering his name from the far path, asking him to come closer. By autumn, he refused to walk past the grave at all, covering his ears as he hurried by. Yet, in later prints, the blurred woman appears nearer, her hands lifting as if to beckon him forward. Tunnel with painted face, abandoned works, undated. They said the tunnels were empty, though the air always felt warm, as if someone had just stepped out of sight. In the photograph, the painted face on the wall seems too alert. Its mouth caught mid-breath, the eyes oddly wet in the flashlight's beam. When Mark first explored the place, he swore the face hadn't been there at all. Just blank brick and dust. The second time, he heard a soft scraping behind him, like a shoe turning slowly on grit. By the third visit, the face had shifted slightly, its mouth opened wider. Mark never went back. But neighbors still hear footsteps under their floors at night, stopping whenever someone listens too closely. Woman at the altar table, private home, mid-20th century. They said Mrs. Klein only dabbled in harmless rituals, little things she read in old paperbacks at the library. In the photograph, she's leaning over the small altar she kept in her spare room, though her gaze seems fixed on something far beyond the table. Behind her, the painted figure on the wall looks less like artwork and more like a person pressing forward through thin paper. Neighbors later recalled hearing two voices when she practiced. One calm, one low and wavering, almost coaxing. Mrs. Klein swore she worked alone, yet her shadow always appeared doubled in the prints. When the room was cleared after she moved, the wallpaper was smooth, except for one place behind the painting, where something had scraped lightly from the inside. Girl in the Field, rural meadow, early 1940s. They said the photograph was taken on a Sunday, when Evelyn liked to sit among the daisies and pretend she was posing for a magazine. In the picture, she looks calm enough, hands folded lightly in her lap, though her eyes seem fixed on something just past the camera. If you look longer, you'll notice the figure behind her. A man-shaped blur that wasn't there when her brother snapped the shot. Evelyn later asked if someone had been walking in the trees, but no one had seen anyone else on the property. The negative showed the same shape, only nearer, as though it had stepped forward between frames. By autumn, Evelyn refused to go into the meadow at all, claiming the flowers bent toward her as if listening. And in later copies, the blurred man stands almost directly behind her, one hand beginning to lift. Girl with a white bow, parlor chair, late 19th century. They said Clara had only been resting when the photograph was taken, though her hands look arranged as if posed by someone else. The flower she holds appears fresh, yet no one in the house remembered bringing any in that day. When the picture was developed, Mrs. Hartley noticed a faint smudge near Clara's shoulder, like a thumbprint pressed from the inside of the paper. Clara began insisting she felt someone standing just behind the chair whenever she sat there, breathing softly against her braid. The maid claimed she once saw the bow lift on its own, as though a child were tugging at it. In later prints, the smudge darkened into the shape of a second hand, resting lightly on Clara's sleeve. Though she had posed alone, Girl in the Garden, family estate, early 20th century. They said Lillian liked to sneak outside before breakfast, wandering the garden barefoot while the grass was still cold. In the photograph, she looks as though she's reaching for a fallen petal, but her eyes are lowered too intentionally, as if she's pretending not to see what's beside her. In the shrubs, faint children's faces gather in the leaves, pale, watchful, arranged almost symmetrically. Lillian later told her aunt that she heard giggling under the boxwoods, though no cousins were visiting that summer. When the print was developed, the faces appeared clearer, closer to the surface, as though rising to meet the light. By autumn, Lillian refused to play outdoors at all, claiming the bushes whispered her name. And in later copies, one small hand seems to tug at the hem of her gown. Soldiers by the Bridge, occupied grounds, mid-20th century. They said the photograph was taken for record keeping, just a group of men passing time near the garden pond. Yet several of the soldiers later insisted they felt watched, as though someone stood just behind the photographer. In the picture, their reflections ripple strangely. Some figures appear doubled, others missing from the water entirely. One man, seated at the edge, swore he felt a hand grip his shoulder, though everyone nearby had both hands visible. When the print was developed, a faint outline appeared beneath the bridge, shaped like a man crouching, head turned upward. By winter, none of the unit would go near the garden again, claiming they heard slow footsteps pacing under the stones. And in later copies, the crouching shape inches closer to the group, as if preparing to stand. Execution yard platform, prison grounds, early 20th century. They said the guillotine had been dismantled decades before, yet the photograph shows it standing clean and ready, as if waiting for the next name on a list no one keeps anymore. Guards claimed the yard stayed unnaturally cold, even in midsummer, and that footsteps circled the platform long after midnight. In the picture, beneath the stage, a dark oval doorway gapes open, and some swore they saw a figure crouched just inside it. Thin, bowed, as if listening. When the print was developed, faint streaks appeared on the blade, like smudged fingerprints trying to hold it still. Workers avoided the yard after one man insisted he heard whispering from beneath the boards, steady and patient. And in later copies, the crouched shape seems to shift forward, inch by inch, toward the steps leading up. Banquet gathering, hotel ballroom, late 1930s. They said it was the happiest night of the season. A long table crowded with friends and business partners, raising their glasses in perfect cheer. Yet in the photograph, a few of the guests seemed to be looking past the camera, their smiles held a bit too long, as if waiting for someone else to arrive. Near the center, a man's face appears twice, once where he sits, and faintly again behind another guest. Blurred, but unmistakably his. Several attendees later insisted they felt a cold draft move along the length of the table, though the windows had been shut tight. When the photograph was developed, the reflection in a wine bottle showed an extra hand lifting a glass in a silent toast. By winter, people spoke quietly about a 13th guest no one remembered inviting. And in later prints, a pale figure stands at the far end of the table, raising its glass last. Bar table snapshot, local pub, recent evening. They said the place was noisy enough that no one noticed anything unusual at first. Just the clatter of glasses and the soft blue light from the TV over the bar. In the photograph, most people looked tired in the familiar way. Heads bent, drinks half finished. Except for the faint figure drifting behind the woman in black, its features blurred as if passing too close to the camera. The two women at the back seemed to be looking directly at it, though no one in the room recalled anyone standing there. One man later mentioned feeling a cold draft move between the tables, the kind that raises the hair on your arms, even when the doors are shut. When the picture was enlarged, the blurred shape appeared to be leaning toward the woman at the table, hand half raised as though trying to tap her shoulder. By closing time, no one remembered a stranger in a pale jacket walking through the pub, and in later shots from the same night, that same figure shows up again. Always behind someone, always just a little closer than before. Teens on the bed, suburban bedroom, early 1990s. They said it was just a sleepover photo, the kind every parent keeps in a box somewhere. Pajamas, junk food, everyone leaning into everyone else. But in the corner, half hidden by the wall, a figure sits too still, too shadowed, as though it arrived after the picture was taken. None of the kids remembered anyone else in the room, yet several later admitted they felt watched that night, as if someone were crouched just out of sight. When the photo was developed, the figure's face appeared blurred, the kind of blur that comes not from motion, but from something refusing to resolve. One girl said she heard breathing near the closet long after the lights were out. Another swore the dark shape was closer the next morning, moved a few inches from where it had been. And in later copies, its outline grows sharper, as if finally deciding to turn toward the camera. Couple at the graveside, Hilltop Cemetery, early 1900s. They said the couple visited the cemetery every Sunday, bringing fresh flowers and a small tin cup they filled with rainwater from the pump. In the photograph, they sit almost peacefully, though neither looks at the camera. Their eyes are fixed just past the lens, as if someone else were standing there. The marker between them reads only BW. Yet townspeople swore no one with those initials had been buried on that hill for decades. When the picture was developed, a faint shape seemed to be rising behind the headstone, a pale blur that hadn't been visible in person. The wife later claimed she heard footsteps circling them slowly that afternoon, crunching the grass though no one approached. By autumn, both refused to return, saying the air around the grave felt too occupied. And in later prints, the pale blur leaned slightly forward, as if trying to sit beside them. Father and son, portrait, studio tintype, late 19th century. They said the photograph was meant to comfort the boy, who'd been nervous about sitting still under the bright lamps. Yet, in the tintype, the father's eyes catch the light in a way that doesn't look like glare, too pale, too fixed, as if he were staring past the photographer. The child leans against him heavily, but his posture seems guided, as though someone else's hand were arranging him just out of frame. When the metal plate was developed, a faint second outline appeared behind the father's shoulders, like another figure trying to stand in his place. Neighbors later whispered that the man had complained for weeks of feeling watched inside his own house. By winter, the boy refused to enter the parlor where the portrait hung, claiming the father in the picture sometimes shifted in his seat. And in later exposures from the same session, those pale eyes seem to follow the viewer, even when the plate is turned. Woman at tea table, parlor studio, late 19th century. They said the portrait was meant to look playful. The young woman lounging with her skirt askew and a teacup held delicately between her fingers. Yet in the photograph, her gaze feels fixed on something just beyond the camera, as if waiting for a cue that never came. To her right, the faint blur of a second figure stretches upward. Too tall, too smooth, like someone stepping forward mid-exposure but leaving no features behind. The photographer later insisted no one else had been in the room, though he admitted feeling a cold draft at his back as he worked. When the plate was developed, the blur looked less like motion and more like a person trying to sit beside her. The woman complained for days afterward that the parlor felt crowded, though she lived alone. And in later prints, the blurred figure seems to lean toward her cup, as if hoping for a sip. Two women in faded portrait, unknown studio, early 20th century. They said the photograph was meant to be a simple keepsake, a quiet portrait of a mother and her grown daughter. Yet in the print, only one woman sits clearly, while the other appears doubled, her features drifting apart as if she tried to hold still and couldn't. The writing at the top, reversed, hurried, looks less like a signature and more like something scrawled on the glass from the inside. Neighbors later recalled the daughter insisting she felt someone hovering just behind her during the sitting, whispering that the exposure was taking too long. When the plate was developed, the studio assistant claimed he heard a soft tapping from the drying rack, though no one else was in the room. By autumn, the daughter refused to sit for any more photographs, saying the camera picked up things she didn't want to see. And in later copies, the blurred woman seems to turn her head slightly, as if noticing the viewer at last. And so, perhaps these old photographs don't just capture moments, but the things lurking between them. If you felt a shiver tonight, imagine how many more forgotten pictures are still out there. Quiet, waiting, watching. If you'd like to see more stories pulled from the shadows, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and ring that little notification bell so you never miss what comes next. Tell me in the comments which photo unsettled you the most, and which one you'd never dare look at again. Until next time, keep your lights low and your eyes open.